Good evening again. Thank you for tuning in to Poem Praise 2, and we're going to move right along with our next extraordinary African American, Mr. Ash. And this is the information I have on the tennis player during the time period of 1943 to 1993, and it reads as such. Arthur Ashe grew up to become a world-famous tennis champion. As a child, however, he was prevented from playing on most public courts or competing in many tournaments because he was African American. Born in Richmond, Virginia, Ashe learned to play tennis at Brookfield Park. His playing was so impressive that he caught the attention of R. Walter Johnson, who had coached tennis great Althea Gibson, the first African American to play professional tennis. As a 13-year-old, Ashe himself shattered a racial barrier when he became the first African American to compete in the Boys Tennis Championships in Maryland. In 1961, Ashe entered UCLA on a tennis scholarship. 2 years later, he became the first African American man to join the U.S. Davis Cup team. Over the next 15 years, he set a winning record that would stand until 1984. In 1965, Ashe, representing UCLA, won the NCAA Men's Singles Championship. Remembering the difficulty he had as a tennis player in a segregated world, Ashe helped establish the National Junior Tennis League in 1968 to help poor children develop their tennis skills. That same year, he also became the first African American man to win the U.S. Open. Now, Ashe's concern for human rights led him to protest apartheid, an extensive system of segregation in South Africa. Because of his actions, the South African government refused Ashe's request for a visa to enter the country in 1970. 3 years later, however, the South African government reversed its decision, and Ashe became the first black man to play in South Africa's national championships. Persistence. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Then, in 1975, Ashe became the first African American to win the men's singles title at Wimbledon, when he defeated Jimmy Connors. Now, following a heart attack in 1979, Ashe underwent a quadruple bypass surgery. The following year, he retired as a professional tennis player with a record of 818 wins, including 51 titles. Ashe did not give up his interest in the sport. However, he became captain of the U.S. Davis Club. I was about to say club, but he became captain of the U.S. Davis Cup team in 1980. 3 years later, he was forced to undergo more surgery, during which he received a blood transfusion. Unfortunately, the blood was contaminated. with the HIV virus that causes AIDS. At the time, however, no one knew this. Ash continued his efforts to end apartheid in South Africa. He was also active in the drive to raise academic standards for college athletes. Over the years, Ash wrote several books: A Hard Road to Glory, A History of the African American Athlete, Off the Court, and Days of Grace. Ash died of AIDS in 1993. A statue of him holding books and a tennis racket stands on Monument Avenue in Richmond. I do thank you for your attention regarding Arthur Ashe. Please stay tuned here on Poem Praise 2. Our next extraordinary African American that I'm going to have for you is Henry Louis, Hank Aaron, a baseball player. So stay tuned. And guess what, y'all? Looky here. Yes, we are almost done with the extraordinary African Americans, but certainly these aren't all. These are just a few, and certainly a few for you to know about, a few for you to hear about, and definitely a few for you to get motivation, determination from, of our history for our present and to prepare for our future. All right, thank you. I'll holler at you in a little bit, y'all. Okay? Later, y'all.